This video is sponsored by Skillshare. If we haven't met before, my name is Ginny and I'm a third-year PhD student in Canada doing medical and clinical research. I completed my bachelor's in 4 years, and despite being a person who is an absolute procrastinator, I fidget around all the time and I need to get up and move around every once in a while, I still ended up graduating with a high distinction, and I owe it all to being able to schedule my exam timetable to match my study habits and to be really realistic about my habits while I'm in school. Of course, cramming all of your studying to the night or two before your final exam is not really the best way to go at it, but neither is studying way ahead of time, like a month ahead of time, because that's just not realistic and not efficient. And that is a huge mistake that I made when I was learning how to study when I first started my bachelor's degree. I think one of the first most important things to do before you make your exam schedule is to recognize and know how long you actually need to start studying before an exam. There's not really a big magic number of the number of days or weeks that suits you. Some people take longer, some people take shorter. Some of the things that you can take into account when planning out how long you need for that intensive study period before an exam is how quickly do you actually absorb and memorize material. Some people are more naturally gifted per se, and they can memorize things really, really quickly. I'm just not one of those people, so I actually need to sit down and read and memorize over and over again before I'm ready for a final exam. Other things to really keep in mind is how many breaks do you need? Do you need long rest periods, or are you okay with just 5 to 10 minutes in between each study session? I am one of those people that need longer breaks, so when I'm thinking about how long I need to study for, I'm accounting for all the time that I'm gonna slack off, go on my phone, browse for an extended period of time, or just don't feel like studying. If those are some of the things that you do, that's okay. I think you should be honest and realistic with yourself, and then account that into how long you need to study for. I find 2 weeks to be a really good sweet spot in terms of how long I should be studying for before a final exam, and it also accounts for all the times that I need to mentally take a break and relax and actually look away from my computer. And I think what's also really important is to think about breaks as a positive thing. If you just go full out on studying like the first 2 days, what you're gonna end up doing is burning yourself out, and you're gonna lose all of your motivation to study for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Be really realistic and honest with yourself about your study habits. If you are a person that slacks off a lot, don't think that you're gonna magically change and become a perfect student during your final exam season. That is how you end up falling behind and cramming all of your studying to the final moment. Plan to procrastinate and then go from there. So my review sessions are minimum 2 weeks, never less time, even if I'm really familiar with the subject. And I only add more time to that 2-week rule if it's a more intensive subject, say it's like math or physics that requires you to actually do questions from the textbook, versus things like biology, which is usually memorization based. Those will take me a lot less time. But even if I am really familiar with a topic or a lecture, I will still allocate 2 weeks ahead of time before the final exam to start reviewing so that I can do spaced repetition. If you don't know what spaced repetition is, it basically relates to the forgetting curve. The more times you repeat and go back and review content, you're more likely to recall information, and the less likely you will be to forget that information. So that only works over days, not hours, and so that's why I need a minimum of 2 weeks and then adding time from there. My school usually releases final exam dates about a month and a half to 2 months ahead of time. Most full-time students are usually taking about 5 courses per semester, and if you're taking all of your final exams within a span of a week or two, you're more likely to be studying for multiple subjects a day in those few weeks coming up. And I personally like to study for multiple topics and subjects a day rather than keeping each day isolated to one topic, so that I can keep myself engaged and interested, and I can mix up the topics a little bit so that I don't get bored. There is no fancy tool when it comes to planning my exam calendar. I usually just go straight into Excel and just start typing it out. And the way that I split up my courses throughout the weeks and each day is actually by lecture number. Some people like to do it by topic. So if you have different topics like cardio and respiratory, but usually when I take notes during lecture, I always number all of my files by the number of that lecture. So 1 through 24 or whatever it is. And it just makes it easier for me to go back and go like, I'm not really familiar with the content in lecture 7. Let me go ask my prof about this. So I'll usually split it up by lecture number, but that's totally up to you. Some things to also keep in mind when planning this is that a lot of courses have midterms. Final exams don't usually cover as much of the midterm content as they do whatever they taught post midterm. So I'll usually spend a little less time going through my midterm content. During final exam season, my professors or the TAs will also host office hours, so I'll also schedule those into my monthly calendar so I know exactly which day I need to attend them. And this monthly calendar is pretty simple and general. I'm not putting any details in it. I'm literally just listing all the lectures that I need to cover. I'm also accounting for a few days before the actual final exam where I'm reviewing all of the content rather than just through different lectures. So those are the things you need to think about. If I'm doing a 2-week study for my physiology physiology course, I'd probably take about 10 days to review lecture by lecture. And then the last 4 days would be a holistic review of everything that I've learned, and then also going through some of the more difficult topics and reviewing extra on those. If one of the courses I'm taking I don't really have an interest in, or I find kind of boring, inevitably it's going to take me longer to review the content and study for it for the final exam. So I'm going to schedule that into my monthly calendar and account for how much I don't like the course. So I'll probably give myself an extra week to start studying. So all of these study habits and skills that I have are from years of trial and error in school, and I'm so glad that now I have Skillshare. I can spend less time making mistakes and more time efficiently learning productivity and time management skills that actually work from industry experts. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives, and they offer thousands of classes across a variety of categories, everything from design and illustration to productivity, freelance, and more. And what I love most about Skillshare's curated learning paths is that it actually helps to build you a series of classes to master your skill, that I can do it virtually anywhere, like when I have some time in between meetings, by simply pulling out my phone. To up my organizational skills, I've been learning from Ali Abdaal's Notion Masterclass to explore more ways that I can plan my schedule and maximize my efficiency in school. Of course, having to be a well-rounded student in medicine and research requires me to continuously build my skills and portfolio so that I can add it to my resume or CV. And Skillshare has also helped me develop skills in Adobe InDesign for my part-time publication work, and also productivity classes catered towards creators like me. But if you're more into learning about unorthodox career choices or even AI innovation, there is always something for everyone. This is why I'm so excited to partner with Skillshare to give the first 500 people to use my link in the description box a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. That is a completely free month for you to try out Skillshare and to build and learn new skills. Okay, so now that you have successfully planned out your month leading up to your final exams, you can now start to look at your day-to-day planning instead. I feel like exam and study schedules are so different from your everyday schedule, because lectures and classes really give structure to your day. Like, you know, you have to wake up at 8 a.m. to make that 9 a.m. class. Studying for exams is a totally different thing. You really need a lot more self-discipline to get up in the morning and start studying. So it's really important to set yourself up for success by creating daily routines that actually work and that are, again, realistic to your study habits. Like I said, if you have multiple final exams that are all within about a week or two, you're probably gonna have some overlap in terms of studying for those topics. I'm really thinking about which part of the day do I have the most energy and mental focus to sit down and study. And that usually for me is somewhere around the times of like 8 a.m. to 12 p.m. and then 6 p.m. to 11-ish. And then all those hours in between my day are kind of like the low energy, low focus times. So I'll strategically put really difficult courses and more intensive topics during those blocks where I have the most energy. Things like organic chemistry, physics, really anything that I need to do practice questions for, or I'm not really familiar with, it's not my strong suit. And then in between those hours from like 12 to 6 p.m. when I know I have a little less focus, I'll usually study topics that are a little less intensive. So things like physiology and human anatomy. They're usually memorization heavy. I'm using Anki cards and active recall to study them. And I usually think about low energy blocks in my day as moments where I can be productive somewhere else outside of studying. So I still try to make sure I stay active at the gym during exam season, especially when I'm sitting down at my desk for so many hours studying. So I'll schedule in my gym time during that time. And I know that after 4 or 5 hours of studying in the morning, I'm gonna be exhausted. So I'll usually schedule an extra long lunch, like an hour and a half, where I can lounge around, just do nothing, watch TV, before I go back and I start my Anki cards for biology and physiology. Again, you don't need any fancy tools to plan your daily routines and be successful at keeping your daily routine. So this is the Muji Daily Planner. It's from 2022. I don't have the 2024 version because they sell out so fast. What I love about this planner is that it has the monthly calendar at the very beginning of the book, so you have all 12 months ahead of time. And then you also have your dailies on each page and a blank grid sheet on the right side of each page to write down your thoughts or to plan something extra. It also includes weekends, so I love this book. But again, if you don't have the planner, do it on paper, do it on Excel. I usually plan my daily schedule no more than 2 days ahead, which means that I know exactly what my routine will be tomorrow. I know loosely about what I'm gonna do the day after, but I'm not thinking about 3 or 4 days ahead of time because I wanna remain flexible. I know that things never go as planned. Sometimes I'll slack off, sometimes I go through some lectures way faster than others, so I'll adapt my schedule based off of that. And as long as I stick to the progress on the monthly calendar, I know I'm gonna study everything eventually. What's most important to me when I suggest these tips and tricks for studying is to give you tools that you can use to create your own very unique study schedule. There is not a single study schedule that works the best for every single person. Your study habits are driven by your own discipline, and so I would say be honest and true with yourself. When I'm scheduling my exam timetable, I'm scheduling everything with intention. If I know I'm going to slack off, I'm going to schedule that in. Otherwise, what I'm going to do is schedule a full day 12-hour non-stop study session, stop at hour 4 because I got so bored, and then I got 8 hours of studying that I didn't actually get to because I was too busy procrastinating, and then it gets pushed to the day and the day after, and then I end up cramming a few days before the exam. Always make sure that you schedule in breaks. And even if you are not someone who procrastinates a lot, scheduling in structured breaks and knowing how long your breaks should be is really important, because again, you want to avoid that burnout. I think a big mistake that a lot of students make when they study for exams is you end up cramming until the end of the day, and then you start staying up really late. You eventually pull an all-nighter, and now you're waking up every day at 2 p.m. You feel really unproductive. That is why I also try to schedule in my bedtime. I know by 11:30 I need to turn my laptop off no matter what I'm doing, go to bed so that I can wake up at 7 or 8 the next morning at a decent time and be really energized without brain fog and efficiently study. Okay, so that is it for how I usually study and schedule my final exam season. Let me know in the comments if you've learned something new today, if you're already doing some of these tricks, or if I didn't mention something and you think it's worthwhile to share with me and everyone else. Put it in the comments below. Thank you for liking and subscribing, and as always, I will see you guys next time. Bye.